The Wonder Years is a six-piece band fronted by Dan "Soupy" Campbell. They've been around for 17 years now and have been releasing 10 out of 10 records nonstop for over a decade, in my opinion, of course. Being my favorite band, this review will be representative of my subjectivity and biases. Every critic's perception should be influenced by such, and that influence should never be lost. Dan, or Soupy as I will oscillate between calling him in this video, writes both poetically and also intimately, revealing and specific, taking events and details from his life. Because of all of the aforementioned, this review will act more as a deep dive and analysis of the album, reading into the literary aspects of each song, while also giving my opinionated praises and critiques. With that out of the way, please enjoy, and we start with the opener track, Doors I Painted Shut.
I don't want to die.
I don't want to die. These words act as a theme that will not only come back in this track, but also the album. Dan consistently writes about his battle with depression, and this album illustrates a fight between it and his newfound love for his now 2 children. He sings, he doesn't want to die, at least not without you, as a qualifier. He doesn't want to die, but he's petrified of getting up, as a justification. Just a simple lyric like that made me begin to feel what he felt, as I had felt it too. I very specifically remember listening to it in the back rooms at my work, and getting teary-eyed at just how beautiful that one line was. It's here that he also brings in a metaphor that is a staple of the album, a door he painted shut. I believe that this is a metaphor for locking out all the sadness that plagues those of us that are wrought with depression. Unfortunately, this album also acts as a reminder that nothing you do, in Dan's opinion, could ever completely close it off. He feels a draft coming from underneath it. It's important to note that the only instrument used thus far is a guitar. This is because the track builds, likely influenced by some of Soupy's favorite songs by his favorite artists, Broom People, favorite chords, etc. The next idea, he dreams about the sun engulfing us all, and he lets go. The percussion accompanies and builds, guitars layer over. He uses a piece of imagery he loves, of a continent being returned to the sea due to rising sea levels. He refutes the want to be stuck in the sadness. Finally, he comes back to the line in the most powerful way yet. He sings to one of his boys, most likely. Soupy has since expressed his feelings and experience with postpartum depression and that fear of failing his children, especially in the state of the world. I'd like to take a moment to explain that this track is phenomenal, to its core, an exceptional opener. The instrumental building preparing you for the harder sounds that follow. The themes being introduced to be used throughout the album. Beautifully written, beautifully played. Finally, he revolves around the line, I don't like me, and explains that this pit he's in right now is lower than the one he's felt for years. He illustrates his feelings of operating in a deficit as playing piano with a broken wrist. Ultimately, he sends off the track in explanation to his boys that he needs them to know no matter what he feels of himself, he will always love them. Wyatt's song is one that I have much less to say about. It is a beating, fun, percussive rock sound layered underneath Dan singing the love out of his heart, reminiscing about moments with his firstborn, the titular Wyatt. The chorus harkens back to an older Wonder Years track passing through a screen door, where he explains that all the children's names he would like to use are tied to tragedies. Wyatt's name is the only one he likes. Just a beautiful collection of moments from the first time hearing his heartbeat, hearing him say moon, watching him sleep. It's important to note he also mentions digging glass out of his garden, which is a theme that will continue to come back in the album. The height of the song, in my opinion, occurs right after the energy is sucked out of the third verse and then re-injected for the bridge. He screams, gardens, digging. Remember those ideas. Oldest Daughter was the first single off the album and a sequel to a previous Wonder Years track, Madeline. It illustrates Dan's fantasy about what a lost family member might be up to. He was seemingly close with, but now after losing contact, he can only imagine the things that she's getting to. I can't explain how beautiful and gripping and self-contained this track is. Every line is an ecstatic display of life, an instant Wonder Years classic. The second verse is one of my favorite set of lines. Not only is this imagery amazing, but it also shines light on Soupy's draw to death still. He maybe wishes he could have no reason to stick around anymore, but he does now. Apart from painting a story of what she could be up to and explaining how no one in the family knows, it's important to note that he also uses the gray here, which is another Soupy idea that is similar to the hum, clouds, etc. That space of sadness, lostness. He also sees her as trying to swim with two broken legs, a similar idea to how he sees himself trying to play piano with a broken wrist. Finally, the line about the tide coming in could be a reference to sentiments found in The Ocean Grew Hands to Hold Me, being that Soupy trusts the current to return those he loves back. Or perhaps a sentiment shared in a later track, Low Tide. Or finally, it could be a self-contained closure of the swimming metaphor. I'm not one to say. A story better experienced than explained. Cardinals 2 just might be my favorite track on this album. We get some of Dan's best writing and just enough information to better understand the relationship and story of the first Cardinals. Any details I give are open to being corrected by the artist. This is a real event with real people, so I believe interpretation is nowhere near as important as intent. Soupy begins the song by explaining that he knows truly and deeply the feelings of depression. And I know he knows because I felt it too, and I have never seen it so perfectly explained.
As you're waking up, and for a moment you feel weightless, then the panic comes. First the drizzle, then a downpour, then an endless flood starts to run.
He sings about watching the dishes start to build as you lose autonomy to sadness. Likely a reference to the symbolism of when he hit a cardinal with his car. A cardinal being a traditional symbol of a past loved one, and interpreted that what it saw in the glass was a better life than what it had. Again, with the gray idea coming back into play. The chorus comes in with a breath of energy. Building 1,000 paper cranes comes from Japanese folklore about someone building them to be granted a wish. We also hear the idea that he tried to explain in Cardinals, but it's more simply laid out. He feels he failed his friend directly and brutally. The pain likely hurts more due to Dan knowing exactly the way the friend felt. The chorus is ended with a lead guitar riff that follows the vocal melody of "We're no saviors if we can't save our brothers" from the first Cardinals. A pretty callback. The third verse is one that I will be trying my best to interpret, but I will admit that my understanding is likely flawed. From my understanding, the door is a metaphor of the barrier Dan puts up between himself and his sadness, blocking off those thoughts and the things related to them. The horrific poetic tragedy in this is that Dan separated himself from his friend. He realized that his friend was stuck on the other side of that door Dan had duct taped or painted shut. This finally helps us better understand as a listener the reason why Dan blames himself so much. The bridge takes the heartache even further. We get a gnarly guitar breakdown before Soupy sings through croaked vocals that he is still haunted by nightmares of his failure. In the first Cardinals, he explained the same, albeit in a more enigmatic way. Here, it is plain as day. Soupy sees his friend trapped under wreckage and simply lacks the strength to lift it up. A sentiment shared in other songs like Pyramids of Salt. We get a ripping vocal from Dan before the chorus comes back in and the track closes. The song is a gut punch over and over, and I think it should be celebrated for it. After that insane emotional hurricane, we get a much lighter track, a love letter to Philly, the band's home. A catchy, more memoir-esque piece, one that I have much less to say about. Accompanied by a high-energy instrumental, the Wonder Years cannot write a bad song. It is not in their DNA. One lyric to note is, "We're planting gardens in the potholes," as this imagery has and will continue to come up. During the bridge, Matt and Soupy sing, 2 feet of snow on the ground, and it's still coming down. So I'm gonna dig you out. Here, he is singing to the city itself, most likely. Singing that they will dig the city out of snow, out of love. Further, they sing, "It must get lonely without Colleen and Cheryl around." I am unaware of how this might connect to the track "It Must Get Lonely." Dan often uses similar sentences that have no connection. However, Colleen is a reference to the track "Coffee Eyes," where Dan refers to the fall that Colleen left, the season. A fun track seeded with moments of memory that we have the pleasure of being shared with. Summer Clothes has been explained as a piece detailing those moments when the hum, the depression in Dan's life becomes quiet enough, almost gone, to the point that he can just live and experience life with joy. Those little moments of freedom from the sadness that shackles us. A small note is that he uses salt air again, which is an idea he must love as it's sprinkled throughout many other songs of his. I will spare y'all of any more analysis of the lyrical aspects of this song. However, it is worth noting that this track too builds like the first to a point of glass-like falsetto from Dan, a welcome rarity in his repertoire. Finally, the song closes with a run-through of the chorus where Soupy is singing an octave higher but maintaining his head voice. It's a display of vocal prowess that should impress anyone who understands what they're hearing. An underrated track. Lost in the Lights is about the finality of the Wonder Years, the fact that they as a band recognize that this cannot go on forever. Every release they worry, what if the magic's gone? The chorus is a beautiful idea of Dan drinking kerosene at 17 to light a fire in his gut, and coughing out those embers for decades after. Not much more to say about this track, except that it too is a lighter, more fun, high-octane track with an earworm of a hook that you can't get mad at because of how well written it is. The breakdown that occurs at 2:35 is also very similar to the beginning of their track Out on My Feet. Songs about death, or SAD, sad, a nice acronym, like how their song Passing Through a Screen Door abbreviates to PTSD. This track acts as almost a deconstruction of the Wonder Years, or more so, the previous 2 albums. This song is about Dan facing the reality of what he's written about and published. He knows that focusing so much on these losses might be best to not continue doing. The verses are broken up by some of the Wonder Years' hardest instrumentals yet. The second verse holds a reference to their song Pyramids of Salt.
Vacated bodies walls gracefully collapsed and it never stops adding up. You're so vacant. These bodies collapsing so gracefully.
It also confronts the listener with a perspective of what has been happening.
These small memorials that I hold nightly out in front of everyone. I sing them songs about death, and they sing along. It's gotta stop.
Almost as a way of Dan to say, this is all kind of messed up, right? A short but potent track, preparing you for the final act of the album. Low Tide. Listen to this song. Listen to this song. Listen to this song. Nothing I say here could give the song the credit it deserves. Soupy sings about his thoughts and feelings in isolation during the quarantine period of 2020. So many beautiful, small lines. He sees himself as a rain cloud, a potential callback to the first track. He sings about making lists to explain to his therapist why he wishes he didn't exist. This song is a myriad of thoughts, a laundry list of intrusions in our brains. The pre-chorus sums it up. It's low tide at Serotonin Bay. Soupy had always held on through his mental state and losses with the idea that everything will be okay. He's used this idea from The Upsides all the way through the No Closer to Heaven title track and closer, and beyond, I'm sure. But in those moments, he was finally losing hope. Finally, the bridge of the song, he screams about how he feels he will bring the worst to the world, and that the hope of anything else is gone. It is broken up by a double-layered guitar solo that melts face and refuses to stop as his vocals come back in layered over it, hammering home the aforementioned idea. A perfect track. Laura and the Beehive, similar to Summer Clothes, acts as an emotional and energy level rest after the explosive track beforehand. Here, Soupy recalls a moment when his grandmother may have saved his life. The chorus is a beautiful confession of Soupy comforting his family as they are faced with the heartbreakingly sad ideas expressed in his music. The second verse may have a reference to Palm Reader.
Standing in the sunken grass, it used to be the deep end. That pool we swam in Kate's years ago, we filled it up with furniture and concrete.
Finally, the bridge explains that the song is a love song to all those he still has in his life, so they can sing along while they're still alive. A bout of hope, a reminder that despite what his brain tells him, he is okay. Things will be okay, and love is the core of life.
Really believed it.
Old friends like lost teeth. We're back in full force as Dan breaks his previous statement about stopping his incessant need to write about dead loved ones. This song is about the dreams that continue to haunt him, where he is confronted with imposters in his dreams wearing ski masks, but symbolizing the ones he's lost. Throughout the song, he recognizes that these imposters are simply stand-ins. They are his brain coping with the loss, attempting to recreate those people so that Dan can be accompanied by their presence once more. But this is just his brain flaring. Those people are just him. This idea is expressed jarringly in the music video in a way that I praise, but I digress. Being faced with this fact that his head is masquerading as these people, Soupy feels even more alone, caught in the gray once more. The bridge features Josh's gravelly growl vocals juxtaposed by Matt's lighter vocals, a stark line that cuts deep. Old friends like lost teeth. I'm always caught in the space where you used to be. Again, I must praise this track on the composition level, as the final chorus is initiated by a retraction of the instrumental so that Dan can intimately relay the idea once more before exploding into an epic conclusion. A killer riff with a gorgeous lyrics, a quintessential Wonder Years track, and a final bang before they wrap up the album. This song bookends the album, being sung back to his boys once more. It has some potent and chill-inducing lines. Soupy sings,
Girl moves aside for the first time in my life, so I think that I got the dosage right.
speaks for itself. The metaphor of the devil, this idea that his depression and suicidal tendencies were passed down through blood from generation to generation, a reason Soupy did not want to have kids for a long time, is beautifully brought back as he hopes to finally break the pattern, break the poetic heritage, and free his boys from it. The song baits us with a trap drum beat before tossing it out for an overdriven guitar to remind us that this is still a rock album. He adds the specifics of the world that give him fear of keeping the boys safe, accompanied by his gut-wrenching vocal tears.
Fire reach the coast as the sea levels raise. It's like we're circling the drain. The news keeps getting worse. The floods in this road. There's a mass shooting weekly now.
So I'm gonna dig you out, he sings to his boys. They act as reminders that he is not alone. They combat all the negative ideas that he's presented in this album and even beyond. They make him what he so badly wanted to be, brave. Finally, in the height of the track, what it's been building to, his love for the boys have won the war over his desire to die. He has a reason to stick around, a light again. We finally get to understand an enigmatic line from the Sister City's title track, I Want to Swallow the Sun. Here, harking back to the opener, Dan explains, I want to swallow the sun before it can swallow us. He tells the boys he'll build them a garden and closes off all the little recurring spouts of imagery and symbolism. Maybe I don't give this song enough credit. It's ranked as one of my lower on the album, because it really is almost a perfect by-the-books closer. All this talk of water, swimming, the gray, trying to stay afloat. It's a metaphor that he's used since before their first real album, The Upsides. Head above water. In the final words of this album, try to stay afloat.
Try to stay afloat.